Good morning, Warm Springs Middle School, and welcome to WolfPack News. I'm Madison Souders. Today is Tuesday.
And what is your career?
I have had a career over 40 years in radio and television broadcasting.
And have you always wanted to do that as a job?
Actually, it's funny. I originally wanted to be a school teacher. I wanted to be an American history teacher and a football coach. And when I went off to school, to college, I had played football all my life, and I was missing football, so I went to watch one of the practices. And met another guy who also was a former player. We started talking about our love for sports and decided, you know what? It'd be kind of neat for my love of sports if I could actually become a broadcaster and broadcast the games and possibly meet some of the players and go on and do that. So started off wanting to be a teacher and ended up going into journalism in college.
So is there a specific person or a thing that encouraged you to become a reporter?
Probably what encouraged me most would have been sports and then also music. When I got into the radio business and was doing sports and doing play-by-play football games and basketball games and doing interviews, being around the radio station, at times they would need someone to fill in. And when I went to college, you were required not only to do broadcasting as far as sports and news, but you had to do musical shows as well as whatever genre of music they told you were going to play that day. So it was a broad overview of all kinds of different aspects of broadcasting, but music and sports.
So how many interviews at an estimate do you think you've done?
Wow. Probably 300.
Wow.
Ranging from people that were in the movies, singers, entertainers, comedians, politicians, and a lot of people that are people that were leaders in the community, wherever it was that I was broadcasting from at the time, whatever city. But a lot of entertainers. I spent a lot of time at a country music station, and so I interviewed a lot of country music stars over the years.
What is your most memorable interview?
My most memorable interview, probably for some of the kids, you don't know this gentleman, but for some of the adults, Bob Hope was probably my most memorable. He was truly one of the greatest entertainers of all time. And the reason it was memorable for me is I went to what used to be the Sheraton on the Dual Highway in Hagerstown to do the interview. He was going to appear at the Maryland Theater in Hagerstown that night, and I was going to be the MC. So I went to meet him and talk to him a little bit and do an interview that would be played on the radio. But when I went to his room to meet him, his wife met me at the door and was very gracious and welcomed me in and introduced me to Bob. And Bob and I just started talking, and he wanted to know about me, where I was from. And I told him where I was from in upstate New York. He knew the town. He remembered playing there when he was younger. And also I told him that I had served in Vietnam. And he used to go over and do USO tours in Vietnam every year. So with that, he gave me a hug and said, hey, this is great. And we did a great interview. He was just the easiest guy to interview in the world. Had a terrific memory and performed with all the greatest stars of all time. And to think he was coming to Hagerstown was pretty special. And then I got to introduce him on stage that evening before, sold out house. So he's most memorable.
So did you play any sports as a child?
I played football and I also played baseball. I was a quarterback on our football team and I played left field for the baseball team.
Did you coach any of those sports?
I coached when I was older and I was out of school, and in my broadcasting career I helped coach Little League, and then for about 4 years I coached our church softball team that was primarily made up of the teenagers in the church.
So do you have any advice for children that want to become interviewers?
The best advice I can give you is to be inquisitive. Be sure you ask lots of questions. Also, show the person that you're interviewing that you've done your homework, that you know what they're all about. And when you talk with them, look at them, listen to them, and it goes a long way to getting more out of them. It makes them feel more at ease, and they'll open up to you more when they see that eye-to-eye contact and they realize this person really is involved with what I'm talking about. This just isn't a job. They really are involved with what I have done and what they want to know about me.
So what kind of school did you have to go to become an interviewer?
Well, I went to college at the University of Houston in Houston, Texas, and my studies included journalism. One thing I will tell people that it's very important for broadcasters, and that is to have a great overall education, because your English is going to come into play, math is going to come into play. That doesn't sound like much, but if you get into sports broadcasting, you're going to be using that math when you're working with some of the play-by-play options that are available for, whether it be football, basketball. They're very fast-moving, and you have to know math to equate some of the situations that take place on the field. But reading is very important. History, I can't stress history enough, because history can really help. And just to give you an example quickly, I was on the air when the attacks took place on September 11th. I was on the air doing my show in the morning. When I found out about the attacks, and then we turned on a TV that we had in the studio, and then I saw the second plane hit the tower, and then I heard about the plane going down in Pennsylvania, and then the Pentagon, I knew that we were under attack. And while we were waiting to join the national news feed to hear all the major stars on the major networks, because of my knowledge of history and my love for history, I was able to ad-lib for about 25 minutes about relating 9/11 to the attack on Pearl Harbor and how they were both similar. It was an attack on our nation and the lives that were being lost, and that the country was under attack and what it meant. So history is really important. It can really help you out.
So is there a specific degree that you got for reporting?
It would be journalism, yes. Degree in journalism.
So if you weren't a reporter, what other job would you like to do?
Like I said, I would have probably been a teacher. During my broadcast career, I was lucky enough that many schools invited me in to talk to the students about my career and what it was like to be a broadcaster and some of the things I've done. And I really enjoyed that and realized that I missed out on an opportunity I probably would have loved as much as I loved broadcasting. And of course, when you're younger sometimes, you don't think things through. And I've always looked back and thought to myself, you know what? I could have been a teacher and been a broadcaster at the same time, because I could have covered baseball games or football games on the weekends and in the evenings, and then done a radio show on the weekends. But when you're young and you're excited and you want to work at that first radio or TV station, that's foremost in your mind.
So do you think that interviewing has helped you in everyday life, that it has influenced your decisions or maybe helped you make some of your decisions?
I think so, because I think it makes you more aware of the people around you, and it helps you possibly break the ice when you're meeting someone for the first time, because you've been interviewing people, and so it makes it a little more of a comfort zone to be able to just talk to someone you don't know or haven't met before and kind of carry out a conversation with them. And it helps you too as an interviewer to find out some of the things that they like that'll help you in a conversation, because sometimes it's tough if you go to a party or something and you're standing around and start talking to the guy next to you and you start talking about football. And he goes, no, I'm not into sports. You're like, okay, well then you fall back and start talking about another subject until you hit the, because in many cases somebody might say, hey, what do you think of the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl? When they go, I don't know, I don't like football. Somebody might walk away and go, I'm not going to talk to this guy anymore. He doesn't like sports. So if you're able to move on to another topic and discussion, it's very helpful.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Nothing except the fact I'm excited about what you are doing here, being a broadcaster. I think this is so wonderful. I had to wait until I was 18 and went to college. And to understand that you're doing this at the time in your lives that you are It's amazing. And if you stick with it and continue with it, you're going to have a career that you look back on and go, wow, I met some great people, did some fun things, and it was worth it.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you for watching WolfPack News Channel. Stay tuned for tomorrow's 7th grade teachers news segment. In the meantime, if you have a story or news to share your home, school, plus community, email WolfPack News Channel at wolfpacknewschannel.gmail.com. I am WolfPack News anchor Madison, reporting from our WSNS News studio. And remember to send us your story